Mr.
Khalsa.
Khalsa will make this presentation as outlined in CMD 13M51.26. Please proceed.
So, Sat Kartar Singh Khalsa, that's my name. I'm, as far as I know, at least an 11th generation Canadian. So, and every time I've ever voted, my vote is never counted. So at least I get to talk. It's sort of a symbolic thing because nobody ever listens. Well, they listen and then they disagree. As you might have guessed, I'm not here to mince any words. I'm here to denounce nuclear power. I do not believe in it at all. I do this from a position of being a member of the Canadian public who doesn't consider themselves ignorant or stupid. I've been to university for 6 years, taken upper-level physics courses, biology courses, chemistry courses. I'm somewhat literate enough to know that I'm sort of bored by the scientific mindset that assumes that it knows and can control nature. When they started on this nuclear enterprise 50 years ago, they didn't know what the hell they were doing. My godmother died at a young age because she was a radiologist. Oops, they needed to lower the limits. One of my professors said, oh, the funny thing about radiation is every time they study it, they need to lower the safety limits. Well, maybe now the radiation limits are finally right. Maybe. We're supposed to believe that. But we still have to assume that things are predictable, nature is controllable, and we overlook the human factor. I studied in university, I got my degree in sociology, and the thing that they taught us is that all knowledge, including scientific knowledge, comes through people. Einstein, one of the greatest scientists, says the questions you ask determines the answers you get. In other words, if you're getting a salary, you're not unbiased. If your livelihood depends upon the industry, you're not unbiased. It's never what you believe, it's who you believe. That's what sociology says. My fundamental objection to the whole nuclear thing, besides all the health, etc., is undemocratic. It was imposed on us. It continues to be imposed upon us. There is no, you say we're treated as though we're ignorant, and so our objections don't matter. And if we only would understand, then we would agree. What if we didn't? I certainly don't. And even if it's all true, that it's completely safe, the whole nuclear fuel chain necessitates the kind of society that is not democratic. It necessitates a military and security state. It necessitates that. And my big concern about the plant down at Lansdowne is I don't see the security state too much. I don't think it's protected. I don't understand how it could be safe to have a plant just sitting there within a stone's throw of a person walking by. I don't understand how that is safe. I was told at a public hearing that, after 9/11, the security measures were updated. And now they're updated and you've been given them and they're in secret and we don't know what they are. But I can walk up to the chain link fence and see nobody there. And there's a hydrogen fuel tank. I don't understand how that's safe. I also know that the latest thing in technology is robots. Apparently the American military has them and can send them out and blow people up. But they could also blow things up. Now, anyone who thinks that technology is not going to proliferate has another thing coming. So a robot can just fly in anywhere and blow something up, and guess what? Bad guys can do that. So I don't see how it's safe to create a hazard. And yeah, go ahead, you say that, but we know the technology exists, the technology will proliferate. So you're creating a hazardous risk. In the compliance report, which I read incidentally, and read the whole thing, they say the biggest impact there, the biggest danger is inhalation of airborne uranium dioxide particles. Well, if it goes boom, there's going to be a lot of uranium dioxide particles up in the air. So I'm going to go back to my text and I'm going to come back to some of these points. The uranium processing facility here, if it didn't exist and we were asked, should we approve it? Why? Why would we put it where it is? Why wouldn't we put it somewhere else? Why would we transport it through a major metropolitan area? Like, we're treated with so much, we're not world-class citizens here in Canada, we're just dupes. We're just sitting here being pawns. Why? No other self-respecting country would say, hey, largest urban center, let's transport uranium through it. Would Israel have a no security perimeter around a facility like this? Get serious. We spent billions and billions and billions of dollars, we're told, for security in this country against terrorism. Meanwhile, we've got a processing facility right there. And I see no evidence of any security system. And if there was a security system, that would probably cost millions. So just relocate the darn thing. On the subject of democracy, I was disappointed. Shut it down. I was disappointed by Andrew Cash. And thank you for his work to get this hearing, but what does the community want? They lied to your faces. They said they were informing the public and they weren't. And there's no consequence for their actions. That's wrong. As a minimum natural consequence, they should have to do the hearing again and listen to people like me, even if they don't like it. As a minimum, we want to have the license suspended. You guys have enough pellets on hand. We should have a new licensing hearing, and the community should have its say. And I believe that we should say no to the whole thing. But immediately we need it closed down.
Do the right thing. Immediately suspend this operation until you can have a proper license hearing.
Much as I don't believe in that you guys are an autonomous agent of anyone other, that you're free to act, I nevertheless don't believe you guys would say, hey, let's put a new uranium facility in downtown Toronto. I do not believe you would even bother to look at that. I don't even think industry would make that proposal. It's just because it's there. It's simply inertia that keeps the thing going. So, it's not what you believe, it's who you believe. Why should we believe this organization? They're bought and paid for. Why should we believe when they've lied to us consistently? Why should the evidence that you're going to decide whether they're operating safely is provided essentially by them? Why should we believe that? I don't see any reason to believe that. Oh, and they send some of their uranium to Wilmington. Some of the, a small quantity of pellets is fabricated for our parent company. Didn't they make nuclear weapons, those people? And what are they doing? What are they doing with that uranium? It's not mentioned. And why are we supposed to believe they're credible when they use words to you who are scientifically literate like natural uranium? Uranium dioxide is not natural. Since when is it natural? It's processed. It's not natural. You're just using it as a euphemism, as a propaganda. You have to decide whether you're, and then later on they say, oh, part of our community outreach program will be to have an education campaign on greenhouse gases. I don't see how that is relevant to the safety of the processing facility in question. That's just propaganda for the nuclear industry at large. I also noted they said they did a self-assessment. 2 recommendations for facility hazardous waste procedures. I wonder what those are. I don't know. I noted 900 grams is released into the water, and it took over 1 million liters of water. I wonder if all that water was purified to make it potable before it was wasted by putting uranium in it. And I wonder how much further dilution is necessary for meet drinking standards, because it wasn't measured to see if it met drinking standards, and I don't think it met drinking standards. I also wonder, in the 50 years it's been operating, since the limits have gone down, 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 what's the cumulative amount of uranium that's been put in the water? And can any one of us seriously believe that this is a good thing for our society? Let's just create toxic wastes. Let's just dump it in the water. I think by now we should be environmentally aware enough to realize that process cannot go on indefinitely. At best, uranium is a stopgap measure towards a better system of producing energy, or a decrease in the use, undoubtedly a decrease in the use of energy. It's not a permanent solution. It can't last 200 years, but the uranium that we produce, the waste, it's going to last a long time. How do you get it out of the water? It's pretty easy to dig it out of the ground and dump it in. Here's another example of how how neutral they are. They say, fact, nuclear energy produces no greenhouse gases. Really? The trucks bringing it in, no greenhouse gases. The mining, no greenhouse gases. There's no radon release of all the mining and all these things that are happening. I think that is propaganda. That's an opinion. It's not fact. So they have to decide, are they giving us science, or are they giving us self-serving propaganda? They're not clear. Cleanest source of energy that can be relied upon. That's not a scientific statement. I believe that people measure what matters to them. The proof is in the pudding. The GE employees of the last 50 years, I'd like to see an epidemiological study that looks at what their rates of kidney disease and other cancers that can be related to the work that they've done and see if there's an increase or not. That would be proof, not saying, oh, it was within regulatory limits. Bare minimum.
Can you please wind it up, please? Can you please finish the presentation?
Other people have measured the precautionary principle. I think that you need to prove that it's safe. I think you need to do ongoing health studies. I also think you need to respect the people who don't want it there, the people who are living around it, and they were not consulted and not given consent. If you think we're too stupid to give informed consent, respect their democratic rights to say no. People talked about risk assessments and, credible risk assessments. I think that credible risks, terrorism is a credible risk, accident is a credible risk. I think that the risk analysis of the industry is based upon mathematical things that assume things. For example, one of the assumptions of probability analysis is that events are infinitely repeatable under identical conditions, something that never actually happens in real life. And it never applies to individual events. And when we're talking about nuclear reactions, one of my professors said, oh, scientists believe that probably there are unique events happening inside every nuclear reactor in the world. So you can't predict them, and yet we're told everything is safe. It's not what you believe, it's who you believe. And I think we could have a beautiful, happy world without nuclear power. I don't think nuclear power and the whole thing that's gone along with it has made for more democracy. It hasn't been with the democratic consent of the First Nations peoples of this country.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to say one more thing.
You are way over time. Could you wind it up, please?
Yes. There are obvious risks associated with this plant being where it is and the transportation involved, and there are obvious remedies, even at a minimum, even if you agree with nuclear power, put it somewhere else.
Thank you. Question? Anybody? Question? Dr. McKeown?
So could I just ask staff, have epidemiological studies been done in power workers, in nuclear energy workers?
Patsy Thompson for the record. The answer is yes. There were studies done of nuclear energy workers, Canadian nuclear energy workers, and I'm failing to recall the period of the study, but it will be easier. It was just posted on the CNSC website. We've just had the study of nuclear energy workers was accepted in the British Journal of Cancer. It was just posted on our website. There's also studies that have been done that are probably more relevant to the ge-hitachi workers, workers of the El Dorado cohort, which included processing workers from Port Hope. And those studies have been done, and we have no indication of increased rates of kidney disease.
So, Mr. Khalsa, would it help to send you the references to those?
Yeah, I'd be interested to read those. But the ge-hitachi workers themselves haven't been studied, and we were told at a community meeting that no health effects there was no attempt to measure the possible health effects in the community because it was already presumed to be safe. I think what we're talking about is a presumption that uranium is dangerous, not that it's safe. And somehow, I'm just a dumb guy, somehow it's all safe. That just doesn't fly with me. I don't understand that, how it's perfectly safe.
I was at a public meeting last December where I clearly said that contrary to what MP Cash and others had said, the statements were being made that the CNSC had never conducted any health studies. And I specifically pointed to the health studies, and I actually mailed a box of studies to MP Cash to get him to read the work that had been done. And so all of that work is available on the CNSC website, and we can certainly make it available to the intervener.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to I'd like to move on to the next oral presentation by the Canadian Nuclear Workers Council.